Hello friends, there's good news. Not only were we able to find out what was blocking us when it comes to returning the flight conditions when we queried the API of Amadeus, but we're able to integrate the API. In fact, in the platform, you can actually search for a flight at any interval and you have the response. Before going to demonstrations, I would like you to do one thing for me. That is like this video and subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell. We're not asking for money, it helps us. In this series of episodes, we will integrate essential systems into a custom-built online platform that we are going to do for a travel agency, with the goal of significantly improving productivity and profitability. This platform will allow customers and prospects to book flight tickets, hotels, furnished apartments, car rentals, and tourist routes. Here are the key tools that we will be integrating with the app Zoho CRM to fully automate and orchestrate tasks related to marketing and customer billing. WhatsApp API to automate communications with customers as part of the processing of reservations. Connections to the main social media networks to enable a greater number of customers and prospects to access the agency services directly from the networks. Conversational chatbot based on ChatGPT to respond to customer questions at any time of the day and even trigger certain operations at the request of customers. Artificial intelligence capable of making suggestions for reservations to customers. Now you remember in the previous episode we had two problems. First, when we query the API of Amadeus, it doesn't return the logo of the flight companies, and it doesn't give the flight conditions. In fact, we're not able to get the flight conditions. So I'm going to start by choosing direct flight, and I'm going to take my town to be Douala. Select Douala DLA. Then the destination, I'm going to take Paris. Let's say Paris Charles de Gaulle. Then the departure date, I'll take the 4th, and for the crew I'll take now the class I took economy. Okay, now you will see there's a list of available flights, and you see at the top bar you have alternative dates in which you can choose from, and with their prices, the corresponding prices. The red one is the one that I'm currently in, the date I just inputted in the previous screen. Now I'm going to check now the flight conditions. As you remember, I said one of the difficulties we had was to return flight conditions, but then there's not all flights that return conditions, but there are some that do. Like this one here. Yes, this one gives the conditions of the flight. So we'll go back up, and then now we also have filters at the right, which you can filter your results in different. Using different criteria. Like, let's say I want to choose a number of stops. You see, it changes according to the number. Now I can also filter by other criteria, like let's say the pricing scheme. I think that the best price. You see, you can take the flexible price, and yeah. Now you can also filter by alternative dates. I mean, you see, as I select the other dates, it gives me the flight available for that. If you have been following the video, you will notice that there's a slight change in the user interface as to what we showed on the previous episode. But we'll come back to the reason why it changed. But now, what we learned in this experience is that when you are onboarding a project with a client, the communication part is extremely important. Make sure that there's a perfect understanding of what the client is requiring from you, or the expectations of the client. The expectations have to be properly managed so that at the end of the day, the client understands what is going to be presented to him or her at the end of the project. So, what do we miss here? First, we consider the user interface. While we were developing the platform, or developing this first version that we just built right now, the client asked us a question that I hope this is not what I'm going to see at the end. We first of all stopped and like, what's going on? In fact, the client validated the mockup, but not the color scheme. The color scheme was the client in her mind knew that it was just a test, or it was just a mock-up just to show how the flow is going to look like, but we have not yet addressed the part of the aesthetic part. That one was not yet validated with the client, but we assumed that the client has given her go on all this. So that's why we had to go back and tweak the UI. Luckily for us, it was not that big, but we need to note this, that whenever you are presenting a mock-up to a client, make sure everything is validated before moving to the development phase. It is very important, because if it's in a case where the client is requiring changes that will significantly impact the code that's already been laid down, it's going to be problematic, especially for the deadline to achieve. So always make sure that we validate explicitly with the client what has to be presented at the end, in terms of visuals. So that's one key take we got out of this experience. Concerning now the part of the API, one thing that we actually missed out is that the naming conventions that were given by the client was not the same naming convention that you find in the API, because the objects in the API use different names for what the client actually gave us. For example, since the client is French speaking, the conditions, the flight conditions, they call them conditions de vol, but we're expecting to see it literally within the objects of the API, whereas it was not the case. In the API, it has a completely different name. So that was what making us difficult to actually find those flight conditions at the end. So we should not always be expecting that on the user interface, the terminology that is used in the industry is the same that we'll find on the same naming convention that we'll find on the objects of the API. The naming conventions that we'll find in the API is not the same naming conventions that we'll find in the API itself. So we have to watch out for this kind of little changes, so that we're not going to miss out on certain very important key aspects of the API. Now that we've implemented it on our first version of the app, we're going to present to the client, and then in the next episode, we're going to talk to you about how the meeting went on and what were the impressions of the client. So stay tuned, follow this video, and subscribe to our channel, and even share with your friends and families, so that you'll be up to date with what is going on in the development of this application.